A Tale of a Muslim Girl and Her Infidel Lover. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to inform the reader that this novel is narrated in 3 books. Book 2. The Muslim Apostate Girl and Her Christian Infidel Lover. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real life of a Muslim girl in Sudan. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events, or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 1. Meeting Sister Sakina and Brother Abbas. Mastora bint al-Zubair al-Rashidi arrived at the Athens International Airport on the morning of a Monday. She was very tired and exhausted from the long trip she took from Africa to Europe. She had been told by the Libyan man al-Zubair al-Rashidi that someone would be standing with a small board in which her name would be written in Arabic and English. The newly arrived Libyan girl was carrying her small purse, in which she had a couple of $1,000. She had nothing on her to show that she came all the way from Libya to Greece. As soon as she entered the arrival hall, she saw many people come to receive their relatives or friends. She began to search for someone carrying a board on which her name was written, but she saw none. She searched everywhere in the huge hall, but she could not be able to find that person who was supposed to come and receive her. Her feet became numb, and they could no longer keep her standing. She found a bench and fell on it. She sat on that seat and waited, but no one came to look for her. She concluded that the Rashidi man had cheated her. This conclusion filled her heart with indescribable dread. What should she do in a foreign country like Greece? Where should she go? While she was pondering in her desperate situation, Dr. Ibtihal heard the announcement that someone was looking for a young woman coming from Libya by the name of Mastora bint al-Zubair al-Rashidi. She suddenly remembered her name had been officially changed without her consent from Ibtihal Taha al-Amin to Mastora bint al-Zubair al-Rashidi when she was in Libya. Therefore, she stood up and began to move around in all directions and looked for the office in which the announcement was made. While the Libyan girl was running in circles inside the spacious arrival hall and asking everybody, she found a young white lady who directed her to the office where the announcement was made. When she entered the office and showed her passport, a Greek girl pointed her at the people who were looking for her. She saw a couple standing and smiling at her. "Al-Salam alaikum," said a pretty Arab woman while her lips were still smiling. "My name is Sakina, and this is my husband Abbas." Then the woman offered her hand to shake the hand of Mastora. Ibtihal shook her hand and said, "Walaikum al-salam. We are here to receive you." "Thank you, ma'am." "Please don't call me ma'am. Just say, Sister Sakina. This is my husband, Abbas. You have to call him Brother Abbas too." Sakina was a pretty young Libyan woman. Her husband Abbas was an Egyptian. The appearance of the husband held the attention of Mastora more than his wife. He had a beard that reached up to his belly. He was tall and had a huge body. His gigantic body looked 3 times bigger than the body of his wife, and his age was double of her age. He looked like one of the followers of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or Boko Haram. When she saw them, Mastora anticipated the troubles that were lying ahead for her. Ibtihal uncovered her face and hair from the moment she entered the ship. She felt she was imprisoned inside that Rashidi woman's clothes for 2 centuries. She thought she would be freed from them forever. However, after she saw Sister Sakina and Brother Abbas, she doubted that possibility. She followed the couple silently until they took her to their car. Brother Abbas began to drive the car. Mastora was puzzled by the quietness of the couple. First, she thought Abbas might be deaf. He had neither shaken hands with her nor uttered a word from the time she saw him. After she heard him saying, "Amen," she knew she made a mistake. All this time there was a recitation of the Quran going on in the speakers of the car, and she did not notice that. Sister Sakina too joined her husband by saying, "Amen." The recitation continued when the reader began another long chapter of the Quran known as the Surah of the Cow. In that sad atmosphere, the newly arrived Libyan girl Mastora was driven from one end of the city to another end. During that long drive, she felt as if someone died, and they were going in a funeral procession. Every now and then Sister Sakina looked at Mastora's hair. She made her feel as if she were dressed up half-naked. It was obvious, the Arab couple was not happy to see a Muslim girl without a hijab on her head. After long traveling, the car entered a very crowded area. The new girl Mastora understood that the majority of the inhabitants of that area were Arabs and Muslims. Most of the names of the stores and houses were written in Arabic letters. Each woman walking in the street was putting on the Islamic abaya, hijab, niqab, or burqa. Those Muslim women looked like scary black ghosts or Halloween witches. Most men were dressed in Arab or Afghani clothes and having long beards. Ibtihal could hardly believe that she had come to a Western country. Chapter 2. The first day of Ibtihal in an Arab women's shelter. When the car had finally made its stop, Mastora felt great relief from that gloomy procession. At first, she thought Sister Sakina and Brother Abbas had brought her to their house. Instead, the couple brought her to a place made by an Islamic group for accommodating new female arrivals from the Middle East. It was an old decrepit building converted into a young women's shelter. Brother Abbas waited in the car while his wife took Mastora inside the shelter. Then Sister Sakina told her she had to share her room with 5 young Arab women who came to Athens as single girls like her. She told her further that she would be allowed to stay in the shelter for 2 months without paying anything. After 2 months, she should either find someone to marry her or work to take care of herself. Before she left, Sister Sakina showed Mastora where she could buy her stuff, and where she could perform her daily prayers. On her first night, the new girl went to bed without having her dinner. Her sleep had been interrupted at dawn time, when someone shook her out of her bed. She wanted to sleep longer because she was extremely tired from her long trip from North Africa to Europe. "Time for the morning prayer," shouted an old woman at the new girl. Mastora opened her eyes and looked at the person who forced her out of her bed. She saw the face of an elderly woman who looked like she was 70-year-old. Mastora felt she fell in trouble from day one. She had 3 options, and she should make up her mind fast. If she said she was not a Muslim, she would be kicked out of the Islamic women's shelter immediately. If she said she did not want to pray, her religious commitment would be in question, and she might be removed from the place too. If she obeyed the woman and prayed, then she would be a hypocrite. Despite that, the smart mind of Mastora came up with a 4th choice. "I cannot pray today, mother," said Mastora. "Why can't you pray today?" shouted the old woman angrily. "I have my period." "I am sorry, my daughter. No one told me about that. Next time you have to inform the office when you have your menses." Mastora's white lie saved her for a short time, but not forever. A Muslim woman is permitted to skip her daily prayers if she has her menses, or she has delivered a baby. In the first case, she can avoid her prayers for 3 to 5 days, and in the second case for 40 days. That morning, the tired Libyan girl Mastora slept until 10 a.m. She wanted to sleep more, but the noise created by some of her roommates had forced her to get up. When she opened her eyes and looked around, she saw 5 young women. 4 of them appeared as Arab women, and 1 was a black girl, and most probably from Somalia or Mauritania. "Good morning," said one of the young women. From her Arabic accent, Mastora knew she was an Egyptian. "Good morning," replied the girl Mastora. "You are a Sudanese girl, am I right?" "Yes, I am." The Egyptian girl stood up from her bed and moved and sat near Mastora in her bed. "I am Aisha from Egypt," said the girl, and offered her hand to Mastora. While she was shaking the hand of Aisha, Mastora saw the other 4 young women surrounding her bed, and waited for their turns to introduce themselves. "I am Salama from Palestine," said the second young woman, and offered her hand too. "I am Zainab from Jordan." "I am Khadija from Morocco." "I am Hafsa from Somalia." "What is your name, my sister?" asked the Egyptian girl. Ibtihal. Mastora spontaneously pronounced her real name, and then she realized she had made a big blunder. "Wow, you have a beautiful name," said Aisha. "She is beautiful too," said Khadija. "She looks like a princess," said Zainab. "Why did you choose to come to Greece?" asked the Egyptian girl. "I just wanted to see the West." "You will find it hard to live here without knowing the Greek language." "Yes, Aisha is right, it is difficult to get any work here except cleaning houses of rich people or government offices and scrubbing toilets," said Khadija. "I had done a big mistake by coming here as a single girl," said Hafsa. "Ibtihal is so beautiful that the Arab boys will be crazy after her as soon as they see her," said Aisha. "Have you been here for a long time?" asked the Sudanese girl Mastora. "We are all new in this country," answered Aisha. "What will you do after you complete 2 months here?" Aisha opened her eyes wide and lifted her hands up and then said, "Every girl here must find some work to do before she is kicked out of the shelter. Can the shelter help us to find work?" Aisha put her lips in the right ear of Mastora and said loudly that everyone heard her, "The shelter can help you to go to heaven faster or find a Muslim guy to marry you." The other girls laughed in unison. The Libyan girl couldn't understand what Aisha meant by the shelter can help the girl to go to heaven faster. Chapter 3. The Daily Life in the Muslim Women's Shelter. Dr. Ibtihal could not be able to find any excuse to help her be exempted from the rules and regulations of the Arab Muslim Women's Shelter. From the second day, she was given a long list of those rules and regulations and made to read and sign them and promised that she would follow them without any exception. 2 of those rules bothered her a lot. She must pray 5 times a day with the other women and fast during the month of Ramadan. Luckily when she came there it was not the month of fasting. Dr. Ibtihal, forced by her circumstances, pretended to be still a Muslim girl and joined the group in their 5 daily prayers. Whenever they come together to pray, she prays in her heart to Jesus. The shelter provided the young women with 3 free meals a day. Once a week, each girl got a little cash to buy soaps and other necessities of life. No kind of entertainment is allowed in the shelter. No television, radio, tape recorder, DVD, or CD player are permitted inside the dilapidated building. Of course, no computer, laptop, iPad, or iPhone are allowed in that mosque-like shelter. The place is just like a charity home for orphaned women or homeless girls. Young women spend their free time reading or reciting the Holy Quran. No woman is allowed to go out of the place or enter the shelter after 8 p.m. No woman is allowed to spend the night out of the shelter. She can do that only if she can prove that she has a genuine reason, such as being hospitalized. The young women are allowed to go out of the shelter during the day. The first 2 weeks for Dr. Ibtihal in the women's shelter were a bit difficult. She had to tell a lot of lies to continue staying in that Islamic strict charity home. Her relationship with her roommates is improving day by day. She became more attached to the Egyptian girl, Aisha, than to the other girls. What bothered her so much is the Palestinian girl. She is keeping an eye on her, as if she is spying on Ibtihal. Moreover, Sulema is a deeply religious and fanatical girl. She spends much of her time reciting the Quran. She hardly talks to any girl. The Palestinian girl Sulema was the first one to discover that Dr. Ibtihal has two names. She confronted her one day in front of the other four girls. You had told us that your name was Ibtihal, but I saw in the cafeteria's list that your name was written as Mastora al-Zubair al-Rashidi. Mastora is my real name, but everyone at home calls me Ibtihal. Why can we call you Mastora? Call me any name you like. I love the name Ibtihal, said Aisha, so I will call you only Ibtihal. Me too, said Zainab. That problem, for the time being, ended there. The smart Sudanese girl understood that Sulema is suspecting something more than just a girl with two names. She is like a police dog that could sniff contraband. So, Ibtihal had decided to be careful in her talk and behavior. Life in the shelter for the girls is only eating and praying. The shelter requires every girl to attend the Friday public prayer in the mosque. Every Friday afternoon a bus came to take the girls for the noon prayer in a big mosque. At the mosque, without asking her permission, Sister Sakina introduced Mastora to some Sudanese families. Luckily, those families were not aware of what had happened recently in Sudan regarding her conversion, and the apostasy trial that sent her to the gallows. One of the families showed more interest in her than the others. The family members insisted that the new Sudanese girl should come next Friday, after the public prayer, for having lunch in their house. Dr. Ibtihal knew that the family wanted to know how such a young beautiful Arab girl was allowed by her Muslim parents to come alone, all the way from Sudan to Greece. Dr. Ibtihal does not like Friday prayer because it exposes her to more people from her country. The other reason that made her hate the prayer is the sermons that the imam of the mosque preaches every time. He always directed his sermons against the Americans and their allies. He called upon the Muslims all over the world to unite themselves against their enemies. He often encouraged the young men and women who attended the prayer to rise for jihad against the enemies of Islam. Many times, he called the Jews accursed people and satanic race and brothers of apes and pigs. No one protested against his hostile teachings, or any Greek police arrested him. The Imam's hostile teachings against the Jews had increased anti-Semitism among Muslims in Athens. Other than the boring and prayer life, the new Sudanese girl hates the way the shelter forced the girls to put on the Islamic abaya and hijab, or niqab and burqa. The shelter allows female visitors to enter the building during the day and meet their friends. Males are not allowed to enter the shelter of those taboo girls. Everyone and everything are female, and that includes their pets such as cats and dogs. No one in Ibtihal's room had a visitor since the day she came to the shelter except the Palestinian girl. She almost has women visitors every day. Her visitors are young girls and old women. They are mostly Arabs. Whenever they came, Sulema took them to the canteen and spent many hours chatting with her. The new Sudanese girl Ibtihal suspected that Sulema and those women have some sort of secret organization. First, she thought their secret meetings in the cafeteria have something to do with the problem of Israel versus Palestine. However, she doubted her first guess when she noticed the visitors are Arab and African women from all over the Middle East and Africa. She heard the visitors speak in different Arabic dialogues and African accents whenever they came into her room to get Sulema. When she could not figure out what they were up to, or what kind of women's group they had, she ignored them. Chapter 4. Ibtihal is living in a state of ambivalence. A month had passed by since the Sudanese girl Ibtihal arrived in Athens. During this month she tried to find work to do, but she found none. Her main problem is language. The Somali young woman, Hafsa, found a Somali man in the mosque and got married to him. The other girls said her husband already has a wife and children. Since it is illegal in the West to marry two wives at the same time, the imam of the mosque secretly conducted the polygamist's second marriage with Hafsa. Also, Ibtihal felt so sad when the Egyptian girl, Aisha, found work and moved out of the shelter. Before they left, Aisha and Hafsa became so friendly with Ibtihal. Therefore, the women's shelter became a boring place after those two loving girls left. The Moroccan girl, Khadija, got kicked out of the shelter because she was accused of having a love affair with a young man. One of the ironclad rules is that no love is allowed between a girl and a boy before marriage. Ibtihal, Salama, and Zainab lived for a while together before the shelter brought 3 new girls in the places of those who left. 2 of the new 3 girls are Egyptians and the third one is from Algeria. Those newcomers could not fill the gap created in the heart of Ibtihal by the absence of the former 3 girls. Sister Sakina visited Mastora only one time in the women's shelter. She did not just come to visit and inquire about her life in the shelter, but she asked her to help her prepare an important letter. She said she would write the letter and Mastora had to sign it. In the letter, she mentioned that the Sudanese girl had reached Greece, and she was doing well. She also wrote that through the help of Sister Sakina and her husband Brother Abbas, Mastora got free accommodation and food for 2 months. Dr. Ibtihal tried to find out who was interested to know about her arrival in Greece and her personal affair. Sakina refused to tell her the person who was interested to know about her arrival in Europe. The letter was addressed to whom it may concern. Sister Sakina wrote the letter and asked the Sudanese girl to sign it. Mastora mistakenly signed it as Ibtihal, but Sister Sakina did not notice that. After that day, Sister Sakina had never visited the Sudanese girl Ibtihal again. Sometimes, she met her in the Friday prayer at the mosque and shook hands with her. Meanwhile, the life of Dr. Ibtihal was distracted for a while by the life in Athens and the challenge that was waiting ahead. She did not think much about her Christian lover and her life in Sudan until Sister Sakina approached her with that mysterious request. She began to think of her lover and about the mystery that surrounded her journey from Sudan to Libya until finally, she landed in Greece. Who was behind all this? This question was troubling her heart from the time those gunmen kidnapped her after they killed all the police officers. She doubted that any of those people she met from Sudan to Athens would be behind her miraculous escape from her imminent death that was just a few minutes before she was rescued by those gunmen. The other serious question that was disturbing her mind and torturing her conscience was, where was her handsome Christian lover, Dr. Samir? Through Maulana, the judge of the Sharia court, she learned that he was alive and on the run. Was he still hiding somewhere in Sudan, or was he caught and put in a maximum security prison? She remembered that the judge had sentenced him in his absence to 14 years imprisonment under hard labor. She could not find an answer to either question. Dr. Ibtihal visited that Sudanese family which met her in the mosque and invited her for lunch. The family told her that if she did not find work after she finished her 2 months in the women's shelter, they would help her to find cheap accommodation. She told them that she had some money with her. There was nothing extraordinary that happened during the first half of the 2nd month in the life of Ibtihal that required mentioning. Her daily and weekly life became routine. Praying 5 times daily, eating 3 meals at fixed times, going every Friday afternoon to the mosque, and sleeping at night. Her 1.5 months in the shelter she spent in a state of ambivalence. On the one hand, she hated the shelter life because she was forced to do many things she disliked. Especially she hated praying as a Muslim girl while she was a Christian girl. On the other hand, she loved the shelter because it meant home and security to her. She was happy to find some Sudanese people who promised to help her in finding a cheap apartment to rent after she would finish her free lodging in the Muslim women's shelter. She had not spent a single dollar from those $2,000 that the father of her little Rashida guardian angel had given her in Tripoli city. Then the Sudanese took her to a nice building and booked for her a single-bedroom apartment. Chapter 5. A phone call from the Middle East to a girl in the women's shelter. Most probably, the reader is interested to return to Sudan, and leaving the slow and boring life of Dr. Ibtihal in that jail-like shelter. As some narrators described it, it was the place where those young Muslim women had to eat, urinate, defecate, and sleep at night. I don't want to be so rude and use such earthiness to describe a charity home, but the daily activities of those young women were so restricted, and they were treated like totem animals. They weren't allowed to practice any kind of sport because everything physical was haram for the Muslim young woman to do. Women in jail would get more freedom and better facilities for entertainment, sportive games, and other physical exercises than those imprisoned Muslim young women in that prison-like shelter. Every person following the story of Dr. Ibtihal must be worried and eager at this junction, and wanted to know what had happened to her so-called infidel lover during those 3 months and a half since the day his efforts to rescue her life were successful. Was he still in Sudan, or had he managed to escape somewhere out of Khartoum? Some narrators preferred to leave the unpleasant presence of his escaped queen Dr. Ibtihal and return to Sudan and write about her king Dr. Samir. Me too am inclined to do that, but somehow, I managed to constrain my emotions and apply my mind and stick behind for a while. I had done that with the hope I might leave the prison escapee Ibtihal in a settled life in Athens with gainful employment and good accommodation. Unfortunately, I regretted my decision, but it was too late when I realized I made the wrong choice. Therefore, I have no choice except to narrate what has happened to the runaway condemned Muslim apostate girl Ibtihal Taha Al-Amin on her last 2 weeks in the young Muslim women's shelter. Just a couple of weeks were left for her to leave her temporary jail and go somewhere and live freely in her own apartment when an unexpected incident occurred in that religious shelter. It was during breakfast time when the Greek police raided the shelter and held every girl in detention. More than 50 young Arab Muslim women were arrested on that morning. The Sudanese dissident Princess Ibtihal was among those who were arrested without knowing what their charges were. That was the last thing on earth she could anticipate happening to her in a Western country. If she were held alone, then she might think her arrest had something to do with her escape from prison in Sudan. Dr. Ibtihal was not interested to add this question to her list of those 2 mysterious questions that haunted her mind and troubled her conscience from Sudan until she reached Greece. That innocent question would soon turn the quiet life of the fugitive girl Ibtihal into a nightmare. As soon as they reached the police headquarters, the apprehended girls were told that some terrorist activities were going on in the city, and some girls in the Islamic women's shelter were involved in them. The Greek police intercepted a phone conversation between some terrorists in the Middle East and a girl in the shelter. From the phone conversation, the police of Athens came to know that the girl had some other young women and young men with her in the shelter, and the city who were planning to carry out suicidal terrorist attacks on some important buildings in Athens. The Greek police held all the girls in the shelter in custody to identify the suspected girl and those other people who were with her. Every girl was held in a separate small room and interrogated separately. The interrogators applied reasonable force to make each girl talk. Dr. Ibtihal was kept in a room as small as a lavatory in an airplane. There were no windows in that room. It was her room and toilet. She had been told to use the same room for sleep, and she had to drink water from the same toilet she was using to pee and defecate in. At first, the interrogators did not show much interest in her statement. But when she began to talk about the Palestinian girl, she held the attention of her police interrogators. The girl she mentioned was not among the detained girls. The police issued a warrant for her arrest and a citywide search for her. Also, the Greek police ordered the arrest of Aisha, Hafsa, and Khadija. The police authority concluded that the girl who made the phone call from the shelter must be the Palestinian girl. Dr. Ibtihal thought that she had helped the Greek police by drawing their attention to the suspicious activities of one of her roommates. Sadly, her confession was used against her and turned her life and the lives of the other 4 girls into nightmares. Aisha, Khadija, and Hafsa were arrested on the same day. The Greek police applied whatever they seemed appropriate to extract useful information from those 5 girls who used to live together in the same room. The absence of the primary suspected girl, the Palestinian Salama, gave the police so much restlessness. Every Arab house in the city was meticulously searched. Even mosques, houses, and stores of Muslims had been painstakingly searched. There was no place that the police thought could be a hiding place for Salama that was left unsearched. In that frantic search, some police officers concluded that the Palestinian girl was just a made-up story created by one of those 5 roommates to deviate the attention of the police from the true culprits. That conclusion was supported by the fact that there was no record of a girl by that name in the Arab Women's Shelter admission book. Therefore, the police applied more pressure on those 5 girls so that they could reveal more information. That day none of the 5 girls was allowed to rest for a second. During the night none of them was allowed to close their eyes. Dr. Ibtihal's second name had been revealed by one of the other 4 girls. That girl was the Jordanian Zainab. Her information became a top priority for the police of Athens. A further interrogation with Zainab revealed that Dr. Ibtihal in fact was a Sudanese girl who came to Greece with a Libyan passport. Yet, thorough scrutiny showed that the Libyan girl Mastora entered the country with a fake visa. Consequently, the foreign girl who had double identities became the prime suspected girl, and the Palestinian Salama remained a person of interest. Now Ibtihal was accused as the Arab girl in the shelter who had made that phone call and talked to one of the top leaders of the Islamic Caliphate in Raqqa city at Syria, and informed them of the readiness of her Islamic secret group, who were about to carry out their terrorist attacks on important buildings in Athens.